This is another edition of Ask a Business Analyst. This question comes from one of my subscribers. Her question is, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because this was part of a longer conversation. I was wondering if you have any suggestions on how I can write requirements and present them so that stakeholders and developers can understand them easily, specifically creating them visually and with impact. Rather than this being a how-to video, it's going to be a how-I video. I'll demonstrate how I've used visuals in my documentation in the past with a few real examples. I still also do recommend checking out my videos on writing user stories just for a little bit more clarity on like the textual part of writing requirements. So first, we got to talk about why you might be creating a visual of some kind. Usually if I'm creating a visual, it is to clarify my understanding with stakeholders, focus a complex discussion or meeting, create clarity for a decision to be made, document complex or confusing logic for like future reference, or just documenting business processes that are going to be held out there somewhere for future reference by other people. The most important thing to consider when deciding how to visualize something for whatever the documentation is who the final audience is going to be and what they're going to need to accomplish with your documentation. This isn't about doing something that you think is cool. It's about doing something your target audience will find useful. In general, if I'm documenting something for the business, then I'm more than likely not going to be super specific on any modeling style. I took a great course several years ago at a business analysis conference where they talked about different styles of modeling. Specifically, it talked about the three important qualities of any model. The first one is grammatical correctness, or how compliant the model is to their notation or standard. In my experience, being super strict on notation or standards is most important when whatever you're documenting will be used to code a system. For example, when I'm creating a BPMN diagram that will be used to run like a BPMN simulator or maybe like a process automation tool. Other times it's important to stick to standards is if you're collaborating on documentation with other business analysts, so everyone is essentially speaking the same language. It's important to note that if you're using a modeling style that's so specific that people have to take training in order to understand how to use it properly, then it's possible that not everyone will be actually able to understand your notation if they haven't had the training themselves. Then there is the accuracy of your model, or how well it represents an accurate picture of reality. The quick and dirty here is that if modeling something that needs to last and be referenced for a long time, then I usually go up a level so that it's more likely to stay true for a longer time, and like the variable parts will be documented separately. Several years ago, I was teaching this concept to other members of my BA team and created these diagrams to illustrate how to do this by creating a process flow of essentially my process of going out in college. This verse diagram will be a little bit hard to read, but basically it illustrated the decision process of every step. For example, does the place have a dress code? What will happen if I'm the designated driver? What happens if I like the song that's playing at the time? And so forth. Nothing super groundbreaking. The second diagram represents the same process but at a higher level. It doesn't include every decision, but instead speaks to the higher level process. Then I documented all the decisions as business rules. That way, as the rules change, I don't really have to change the diagram, and it stays accurate. An example of a business rule might be at the step meet up with available friends. If I was planning to drink, then I must ride with a friend. Now that Uber and Lyft are a thing, I could change that rule to if I plan on drinking, then I must take an Uber or a Lyft without having to change the process. Last in diagram quality is learnability, or how quickly and easily the model could be understood. This basically means how fast can someone go from seeing it for the first time and understanding exactly what it's trying to say and what they need to get out of it. Most people you work with won't be trained on all the different styles and types of notations, so it's more important to use a model that makes sense instead of fancy notations that they haven't been trained on. Here are some examples of models that I've created. This first one was created because I was in a meeting with about 10 different stakeholders, all from different parts of my organization, trying to understand how we're going to calculate delivery dates in the future. The first meeting was only 30 minutes, and it was an incredibly difficult conversation because everybody had different levels of background knowledge. People kept getting confused. Concepts kept having to get re-explained. And to help guide the conversation in the second meeting, I created this as a quick visual. I think I did it probably about 10 minutes before the meeting in PowerPoint. And the goal was really just to get everyone completely up to speed and understand the nuance of the different options so we could more quickly get to decision making. Another example of a model I created to lead discussions and help make decisions was this one here. This was a joint discussion with stakeholders from different business groups and IT organizations, and we basically had to nail down how we were going to architect this new process. With this diagram, you can quickly see who is doing what system it will be happening in, and which steps will require new development to accommodate it. This allowed system owners to understand their impacts, people managers to understand impacts to their people, and customer managers to understand how it will affect their customers. Another quick example here is when I was asked to clean up kind of a messy structure in an application that nobody quite fully understood how it worked. Here again, I didn't use any strict notation or standard, but at a high level, it's a concept model, and it helped everyone understand and agree on how things should work so we could make changes for the better. So one last note, I get asked often to make tutorials on different techniques or methods. Many of these methods have foundations or organizations dedicated to furthering the method, so it stays relevant over time. These organizations will have far more comprehensive tutorials out there, and I can guarantee that if a notation is widely used enough that it's documented by the BA community as a business analysis technique, there's probably a tutorial out there on YouTube or LinkedIn Learning if you have access to that, and probably a bunch of other different places online. I'm not saying that I would never create one of these tutorials, but there's no need for you to wait for me if you need to learn something right now. I hope that was helpful. As always, if you have any additional questions, you can leave them in the comments or use one of the mechanisms I've listed in the description, and I'll either answer you directly or I'll create a whole new video just like this one. So subscribe to see those questions get answered. And as always, thanks for watching.